Hi, my name is Laura Moss. I'm a Salute Your Shorts alum, and I'm here with Janina Gavankar and Russo Schelling to talk about their film Stucco.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, you two. I love this film. I was saying to Russo, I'm a body horror nerd, so this was right up my alley. Can you talk just a little bit, for those who haven't seen it, just a brief description of the film?
Sure. The short version is an agoraphobic woman moves into a new home, finds a hollow wall, and starts to unravel.
Yeah. And I think to say any more would be to give too much away. So yeah, it's a wonderful film. It's really unique subject matter. Can you talk a little bit about how the idea came? I'm going to call on Russo to start so that you guys don't have to keep deferring, but then please, both of you, I'd love the answer.
Yeah. So the idea came about going through some pretty hard stuff. At first, the first iteration was me trying to gain another perspective of somebody else's situation. And then once I kind of wrote out a first draft of a fever dream, which didn't have the ending that you've seen. But I kind of brought it to Janina, which is kind of our process, which is me basically vomiting out some kind of idea. And then we both just kind of put it together in a more coherent way.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it could be as simple as, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this thing happened? And then I'm like, yeah, that's a cool gag, except what is that rooted in? And then we sort of figure out what it's really about, But in this case, he sent me this script and with no intention of us ever making it. And I said, oh, we're going to shoot this. But these pieces need to change, but it already had the iconic, oh my God, first of all, I can't call it iconic. I hope that anybody ever thinks it's iconic. I think this is the truth. When I read it, I was like, this is iconic.
It's our favorite scene.
It's our favorite scene. I just felt as if his idea of the tongue moment, I was like, this tongue thing is iconic. It stays in the picture. So, so we had some bits and then we developed it further and then shot it pretty soon after we went to second draft.
I noticed that, I think I'm thinking of everything as a filmmaker from we're in a pandemic perspective, but I was like, this is a perfect movie to shoot during the pandemic because it's pretty distanced. It's a really isolating film. Ahead of your time.
And also the coughing too. Right? We did. Yeah. The first time it came, everyone's like coronavirus. Everyone was just like, she's got corona. It literally, when we screened it online in March, that was the comment section, which was everybody.
But it happened to release online the weekend of the lockdown.
Yeah.
Wow. It's completely unintentional. But things like this happen, when you make a really specific art piece, somehow the more specific you become, the more universal and relatable it is.
Absolutely.
Right. And the room for interpretation, which was basically by design with the film, which was, yes, we have our experience is in the movie and what our interpretation is in that movie. But we wanted to make sure that people could, put themselves in it and get something else out of it because that's what horror does the best, in our opinion, is when you are specific, it opens it up to everybody else, and then everybody else can attribute their own experience onto it. So that was by design. And then, of course, the pandemic happens, and you can absolutely put that into the movie and have it be a pandemic movie if you wanted it to be. But definitely not by design for that anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because I think it does reflect now. Everybody has become socialized to be alone now. I feel it. I'm in New York City. I feel it when I walk on the street. I was born and raised.
Oh yeah.
I'm not bothered by people, but I sure am now. Her agoraphobia felt really resonant with this moment in time.
Yeah, and I also go back to the where she grabs the groceries, she waits for the person to leave and grabs the groceries. I'm like, that's how I do groceries now. I get them delivered, and then I literally watch the person walk away if they're a safe distance, and I open up the door and I grab my groceries. It's crazy.
Well,
Yeah. Janina, what was it like being an actor and a co-director? How does that process work for you?
Well, I've been making music videos for myself and for other people for such a long time that I'm used to kind of going boop, 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 boop. And I'm just kind of used to it.
Wait, was that sound you going in and out of like from the camera?
It was like, I'm in front, I'm behind, I'm in front, I'm behind. That's what I was doing there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for making me clarify, just in case.
Yeah, of course. Well, I just need to know what beep boop was. So yeah.
Beep, beep, beep. Now everybody knows. It's new vocabulary for everyone. Technical terms, everyone. So yeah, so I'm sort of used to it, and I would say the only way it really works though is when you have a partner that you trust who understands the bar that you have for your own performance. So I could, and by the way, we had no time. We shot it here. There were some of the things that are in the film are the only take we had time for.
Wow.
So, you know, I had to know that when he yells cut, you know, when he yells cut, or like I just sort of like get out of the scene or whatever, I could look up at him and we have this understanding, like, did we get it? Because if I see it later and I hate the take, you know, there's just an understanding. We know what we expect. And so, but most of that just comes down to trust. You can only really pull it off if you trust, you know, your partner.
And so how did you become partners? How did that trust and relationship develop?
Well, we met on a tiny little show called The Mysteries of Laura, starring Deborah Messing, while in New York. And I was—
That's why she's in the film.
Yes, yeah, I was
She became a friend.
Yeah, I was a walkie-talkie production assistant. And
you like, also handed out waters. You have a lot of power.
Yeah, okay? there was a lot going on there's a lot going on when you're a production assistant in general. Yeah, we met on that set, and I was, you know, currently looking at like the landscape of television and film from a production assistant perspective, and just like being like, is this really what I want to do? I wanted to make movies, and then we kind of—
and you were relegated to handing out waters. Yeah, and I was part of the core cast, and I would walk by him every day, and I was like, you're funny, what's your deal? What do you do? What do you do? Stand up? What do you do? You're like, are you a writer? What do you do? What's your deal? And then we bonded over video games, and then I asked him to write a performance with me, and it went really well. Obviously. And at the end of it, what did I do? I did the grossest thing. This is nobody do this, by the way. This is super gross. I'm embarrassed by it now. Okay.
Yeah, it was actually it was like a movie moment that I was like, shook my head. Anyway, we were in the Lower East Side, like, what was it, outside of Joe's Pub or whatever?
No, it was in Joe's Pub. It was the stage at Joe's Pub.
Yeah, but it was outside, and you were getting into a taxi.
I was outside. And then I was,
yeah, you were getting into a taxi, and it was after the performance. And I was like, hey, good job or whatever. And she was like, yeah, no, that was amazing. And I was like, yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal was there. That was nuts. And then and then she goes, well, you passed. And I was like, wait, what? And then she got into the taxi and left. And
I was sort of like, it's like smacking him on the shoulder and be like, congratulations, you passed the test. Yeah. And then just getting in a cab and just going away into the New York night.
I was a young man at the time.
But it's so embarrassing that I did that, first of all. But like, also, you did. And it was the beginning of the rest of our careers. 5 years later, here we are. We have an entire slate of projects in various levels of production with different studios, finding homes for each one of them. Stucco is something that we really had to get out of our bodies, and it established a process. We like to look at the things that we're not proud of. We like to examine the icky things in ourselves and other people that nobody's willing to talk about. And Stucco is that, and everything from here on out will probably be that process for us if we're writing and directing it ourselves, because we've now kind of stamped what we do into the ground.
Yeah.
Speaking of icky things, can you talk a little bit about creature design? You know, not giving too much away. You've mentioned a tongue moment. There's a tongue moment.
Yes.
There's a larger kind of creature towards the end.
Yeah.
How do you conceptualize that? How does it become reality?
Well, yeah. Well, first and foremost, I got to thank Thingergy, the people who did all the practical effects on the film. None of them are like, nothing could rise to that kind of level of detail if it wasn't for Thingergy. But to really answer your question, which is finding meaning in your horror, which I think is, you know, the new kind of thing for horror films nowadays. I don't think that they don't necessarily get them every single time, but like finding your meaning in your horror and knowing exactly what you want to monsterize, and then kind of going from there, I think is the best way to do any kind of horror film or any kind of creature design.
In terms of what you want to monsterize, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I want to pull more out of you there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the obvious thing for Stucco, which is like, you know, the monster is depression, anxiety, but I think you could really slap the label, like we said, open to interpretation. I think you could slap the label on anything. We had, when it first premiered at Holly Shorts, we had a girl come up to us and tell us about how she was refined to a wheelchair for a very long time, and she thought she was going to die. And that the thing at the end symbolized that for her, which was just kind of like we did the thing, right? We executed in a way that made somebody feel like that was their monster. Our version is different. And I think that's like, as a filmmaker, that's the best feeling that you could get, which is the interpretation of somebody else and having their own experience put into the movie. So that was
so specific. And then here comes somebody with an experience that related to it in a way that we never could have predicted. You know, in this piece, you know, like the literalization of it is sometimes you have to vomit up your past and sit in the mess that you have made. And whatever that is, whatever that past is, whatever that mess is yours. You did that. We'll never put terms on what your mess is, but life is messy. People are messy. And if you're going to grow and learn, you got to be willing to sit in it.
And that's true. That's how it feels. I mean, watching The Thing, I certainly brought my own experience to what I thought was going on, you know, but it's very clear that, you know, and it makes me feel safe as an audience member to kind of put myself in there. Yeah.
Thank God.
That's rad.
So you said you shot in your home. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow. So I really noted the specific palette that you had going. You know, oh yeah.
That's where we built a wall there. That's the wall there. And that's the hole was there. And then I think we covered up this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
You know, you're an experienced actor. You know what it's like to shoot on location in someone's home. So how did you preserve your sanity while you were shooting in your house? I mean, how did you?
You know,
I would never let anyone in my house, not even myself.
I mean, this was a small production. This was a very small production. But the truth is, Russo and I are so scrappy.
We still had a jib arm in your kitchen, though.
Oh, that's true. We did. We did.
I wouldn't give up that shot for anything.
Neither would I. I wanted it too.
Yeah. No. I was just like, but we're doing this thing.
But by the way,
jib arm in here. Yeah.
We also slept here. So I slept in her bed, and Russo slept behind the hole because there's a guest room there.
Yeah, which is symbolic in many different ways for me, but we won't even go there.
Yeah, it's you just gotta get it done somehow. And we had Crafty in the back, and my little guest house was where we shot the ending. And in a lot of ways, it was easier. You know, commute. It's a rock star commute. Yeah, you also protect your sleep. That's for sure. And then, I mean, also, I mean, I went into a redesign and in construction after we shot Stucco. So I waited for that.
This is a key indie filmmaker move. I did this with an apartment that was falling apart, like right before I moved out. I shot a film there. It's like perfect.
Yeah.
You don't really get stuff up the walls. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So you two have clearly like a seamless and also kind of tried and true way of working together. I'm thinking about the Coen brothers, you know, co-directing. Like what duties, like what responsibilities are delegated where?
I don't think we have something where somebody is better at something than the other person. I think we really just try to interrogate as many things as we possibly can, and go from there. I don't like to say that one person is better at one thing than the other, because we're like hyper collaborative and
hypercritical.
Yeah. So we're willing to change our mind even on the day. I know there's a lot of filmmakers that are like super strict about things, but if somebody, you know, if a department head brings up a good idea, or somebody or a DP sees something in a certain way, and if it's a better idea, we're going to go with it. So I don't think we're too precious about that kind of stuff where it's like, I do this thing better, or this person does this thing better. I think it's the best idea wins always. And that's how we kind of operate.
It's awesome. And I think, you know, it's tough because so much of filmmaking is a military hierarchy, you know, that's the experience that we have
that's not really how we work. It's really not. One of our proudest moments was when we wrapped, and our brilliant cinematographer, Quyen Tran, like cracked a beer. We all cracked beers. I don't drink, but everybody who drinks cracked a beer. And she was like, oh, this is just what we needed. It was so collaborative. And that was like a moment of unexpected pride for me. We always want to make sure that the artists that play in the sandbox with us feel empowered and uplifted to just try things and feel like a leader in the space, you know, with us.
Yeah. And you know, that's an environment I try to foster too. And sometimes it's a challenge because the person coming into the space is traumatized from the film industry, right? Like they're used to
or television, film or television,
right? They're used to being spoken to a certain way, and then when you know, especially as a woman director, I'm curious if you have this experience, Janina, that like sometimes I run into when I'm not being a dictator, that I'm not often that someone thinks I'm not decisive enough, or that I don't know what I want because I am inviting that kind of collaboration. Have you run into?
I think once people enter our hermetically sealed artistic bubble, that's not a problem. But Russo can attest, there's definitely some things. There's definitely some things that have happened. And it's, I think, I don't know if it's about my gender, but more of the fact that I'm an actress. So people think I certainly can't be something else also. It's like, nah, I've been an interdisciplinary artist for 20 years. But by the time they show up and they're in our house, none of that's a problem. I would say it's more development process. It's more taking meetings around town and having to train people to see me as what it really is. But I have a partner who helps with that. He lets them know.
How did you find your DP? How did you find her, and how did that process happen?
I think it's probably the luckiest thing ever, because she is like so overqualified for what she did, to come and work on a short film. And I applaud her just for even like entertaining us, right? But she came from, so, you know, the script was submitted as like a marketing tool for Zeiss lenses, for their brand new lenses, and they chose our script because they wanted to just do some art, right? And was totally like, listen, you guys get to do whatever you want, shoot them on these lenses. and here's a list of cinematographers to kind of choose from. That was
kind of part of the deal, was like it had to be shot by a cinematographer on their short list. We were like, anybody on Zeiss's list is going to be okay with us. Yeah, we just have to convince them to say yes.
Yeah, and I started watching reels, and there were a couple names that jumped out, like Natasha Breyer was on the list, and who's the dude Greg Frazier from The Mandalorian, and we were like looking at everybody, and I was like, okay, all these guys are superstars, and then we found Q, and I was just amazed by her reel. It was so diverse. It was like she could do anything.
Anything.
And I was like, we have to choose her, and Janina totally agreed after watching the reel.
We separately watched them because we weren't together, and we both had the exact same reaction. Like, this is so diverse. She can do anything. We even named our little Siri-esque character Q. We named it after her.
Yeah. Aww. And she responded to the material, it sounds like.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very much so. She totally dialed in.
She still had a caveat. She had a caveat. She was like, she was totally in, but she was like, my agent is going to get so mad if I do another short film. So please don't put it on IMDb.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, done, fine, done. Then we won an award at South by Southwest, and she was like, all right, you can put it on IMDb.
Exactly.
What you were saying earlier about like trying to train people in the industry. Like, I only recently stopped being afraid of my agent. It took years to not be afraid of it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. And it's like, you're the artist,
Well, it's funny. It's funny. But I totally respected it because I'm the same way. I will volunteer my time and my efforts as an artist to so many different kinds of artists in different mediums, etc. But also Q has to protect, everybody has to protect their trajectory. And so much of this business is not a meritocracy and just hype, that you have to show the world in this front-facing way who you are and follow this little path. Meanwhile, that's the front-facing side. The other side of you has to quietly continue to do the work. This takes practice. You have to keep your muscles strong. You have to be able to bob and weave and be able to do such nuanced work. And that requires hours, just putting in the hours. And but because what we do is so collaborative, and to be able to do it requires like a proper production, that there aren't that many instances. So short films is a great way to do that. But then also there's art and there's industry, two different things. So that's why we respected it fully.
Yeah, it's strange that we have IMDb, right? I have so many friends who are not in the industry who are on LinkedIn. They're like, where's your resume? I'm like, resume? In my whole adult life, I've never had a resume.
Same.
Right, yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Yeah, well, what are you working on now? Is this a self-contained, you've done what you came to do, or is this going to be developed into something?
No, that's exactly what it is. I mean, we feel like we've told the story of Stucco. But the thing is, like, we also just love like a cosmic horror type of movie. So the next thing that's kind of up next is a cosmic horror, kind of in the vein of Stucco, but
it's a spiritual successor to Stucco.
Yeah, but it's not a direct sequel or anything. It's just in the same vein.
And how has COVID changed your process trajectory? I know it's hit us all. So how is it you guys?
Once you get over the initial anxiety cliff, and you even out, the thing is, it's like this whole like everybody get to work thing. It's like, okay, if you are also supposed to be an artist who is vulnerable and feels the vibration of the world around you and humanity, you might actually have like a little bit of an adverse reaction to a pandemic, okay? But you might not be able to get to work right away, everyone. So we did that. We took a second, and we're pretty okay. And how would you explain it, Russo?
Well, I mean, to your point about the people who are basically like, if you wrote 3 pages a day, you'd have 6 movies right now. It's like, First of all, like, that's not how writing works. I don't know about any writer worth their salt. That's not how writing works. So, you know, it's like, you don't just write 3 pages and then those are your 3 final pages. Like, give me a break. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, as an artist, you protect yourself as much as you possibly can, but you also give yourself time to feel. And if you've been feeling this whole time, you're definitely primed to make some good shit after all of this. So,
yeah.
or you're making the good shit right now. So, yeah, it was tough at first. You know, obviously as a person with anxiety and depression, you know, that first month was terrible, but then all of a sudden we had some really good work come out of it. So, yeah,
we have some really exciting stuff, and, we're grateful to be able to have the time to really develop at the level that we would like to.
Yeah.
So we have some announcements coming out. Obviously we can't say it yet until the world announces it, but we are,
we got some cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, we're okay.
That's exciting. No, I feel all of that resonates with me. It's tough. There are times when I've wished I was an accountant, because I'm like, you could just work. Totally. You could just kind of do the job, but you know,
put your head down and work. Yeah.
It's not like that. Janina, are you thinking about, as an actor, like when to go back? Is there, you know, I know it's a sticky subject, but my friends who are actors are all over the spectrum about going back.
Yeah, I am kind of, you know, voiceover stuff is still happening. So I'm doing those from afar. I'm getting face scanned for something pretty soon. And, I am shooting a movie at the end of September. So, you know, I think, so this is the most exciting thing about how things might go forward. The safest way to work is with the smallest crew and cast and production as possible. So my, you know, silver lining, my hopeful silver lining is that the projects that will get back to work and the things that will be greenlit right now will lean more towards the independent side.
Yeah.
And the smaller production, which also means newer voices, right? So I think we might be headed towards a really special time in the filmmaking world where these people who don't have $100 million productions might get greenlit before the A-list productions. That's what I'm hoping. That's my, you know, that's my positive outlook on the whole thing.
And I'm just so happy that some of these movies like Relic and She Dies Tomorrow are getting way more recognition than they would if there wasn't a quarantine or a pandemic. I feel like, you know, women who do horror won horror in 2020 because the Relic and She Dies Tomorrow, just like these movies,
they're incredible.
That just blew me away. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And those of us who found catharsis in horror the whole time, reading a study that we're adjusting better to the pandemic because we've been practicing this in our minds for
for ages.
I'm one of these people, like, you know, I not all horror, but the right kind I find very comforting.
Yeah, same.
Well, there's just a lot of truth in horror. You know, I mean, my favorite kind of horror is telling truths that nobody's willing to look at.